All right. Welcome, everyone, to another installment of David Green Real Estate live here on a Friday. This is exciting. I hope everyone is doing well. Curious, drop in the comments. Let us know where you're hanging out from tonight, where you're watching from, and let us know how your week is going, too. I'm really curious to see how that's going for you. We got David here. He's going to be with us here shortly. He's probably on Instagram. Are you on Instagram there, David, getting all your IG people over here?
I actually just got off of it. I'm going to jump on in a minute because I think it was running too long.
Oh, so there's like an actual, they can lock you down there, huh?
No, I think what happens if you're on for a long time, then it stops showing up in people's stories and saying, hey, David's live. So they don't, there's only like 15 people that were on there.
Oh, you want to yeah, that makes sense. You want to refresh it, get it to the front of other people's feeds. While we're doing that, while we kind of give it a break, David and I were actually just came from a live webinar that we did, an info session about our upcoming retreat. David has a retreat that he's going to be doing on the 10 wealth accelerators through real estate, and it's going to be in Fort Lauderdale, July 26th through the 30th. If you want more information on that, you can go to davidgreen24.com/retreats and check that out.
Speaking of retreats, Jimmy was at the very first one we ever did.
Yes, sir. And he's still coming out and hanging out consistently every Friday, and he's consistently on every Spartan League call. He was on it last night. So yeah, Jimmy is the man. Let's see who we got hanging out with us tonight. By the way, we're going to be talking tonight specifically around some of Elon Musk's latest musings that he's had specifically around the real estate market. He's calling for a crash, so that'll be kind of fun to dive into and unpack. Looks like we got Matthew Featherston from Richmond, Virginia. I've never been to Virginia. David, have you been?
I forget Virginia's a state, much like Delaware, and then or Vermont. Do you ever remember that Vermont's a state?
Yeah, like New Hampshire. Yeah, the whole East Coast, honestly, is just not my gig here as a West Coast guy. Javier, ni hao. Good to see you, as always. Kevin Hawthorne, good evening from Lakeland, Florida. Good evening to you. Chris Figueroa, he's also a Spartan League member, just like Javier, just like Jimmy Wisecarver and Jason. Good to see you. Let's see here. Jason Pallett, what's up, my man? Sacramento, good to hear from you and good to see you once again. Jason says, I see these veterans on Friday Night Live here because they all know the drill of mentioning where they're from before we even ask. That's right. My kind of people to hang out with on a Friday night. Chris Gibbons, what's going on? I think Chris was just on the Zoom call. Your name looks definitely familiar to me, Chris. So thanks for coming over and hanging out with us. Let's see. We got Jay from LA. Angela, another Spartan Leaguer, once again, joining from North Carolina this week. You looking for a new place or you looking for some new investment properties? Let us know. Robert is from Dallas. Good to see you. Carlos from LA. What's going on? Joseph from Austin. Let's see here. Yeah, we're kind of playing where in the world is Angela, right? Because she's a traveling person. I think she was in I can't even remember all the places you're traveling because you're always going somewhere. I'm kind of curious too. Let us know how everybody's week went as we're getting more people starting to trickle in here tonight. Let's say Lisa says hello from Southern California. Yeah, she was on the retreat Q&A for a few minutes, but she had to bounce. Oh, bummer. And then let's see who else we had. Wendy joining from Maryland. What's going on? Scott from SoCal. Nick from the Bay Area. Angela says she's vacationing in the Outer Banks. Very cool. But I love this. This is like a true Spartan Leaguer right here. She says, but don't worry. It's a relatively inexpensive vacation. That's a good thing, Angela, because you know we're going to hold you accountable to it in the Spartan League, right? That's a big thing for us, is to make sure we're not spending all of our money on frivolous things. But vacations are important too. We're not trying to say that they're not, but we definitely want to be smart. It's like David talks about, right? We don't want to take 4 to 6 Disneyland trips a year necessarily, because that could be extremely expensive, especially with the way that the economy seems like it's headed, especially with the way that Elon Musk says it's headed. I'm kind of curious to see what his thoughts are on that. Daniel says he's looking for a real estate agent in Michigan. Life has him moving there from the Bay. Okay, cool, man. Well, reach out to us. Send us an email. We have some people out there we can probably get you in touch with. Send an email to info@davidgreen24.com. I just dropped that information in the chat. If you send us an email, we can get you connected with a real estate agent in Michigan, and it's probably going to be a really good real estate agent. I think we already have some people out there that we know. So send us an email. We can help you get connected. Ben is from Buffalo, New York. Gabriel, what's going on from Philadelphia? Good to see you. So we got some people chiming in from all over the United States today. David, what is going on in your world these days?
Oh, it's tough, man. This is the hardest market I've ever seen. We got challenges for real estate agents, challenges for loan officers, challenges for my portfolio, challenges with the economy. You know, a lot of people are hurting right now and they're not talking about it. My personal opinion is that inflation has masked a lot of the pain. So the economy has been in a rough place for a lot longer than what we've seen. But because the prices of everything are going up, it doesn't feel like we're actually losing money, but a lot of people are. So it's just one of those seasons where you're going to get beat down. Like I've been there before. We've sort of avoided this for a long time because we just kept printing money. But if you guys are all feeling the same thing, if you're having a hard time in the real estate world right now, it's not just you. I promise you. Everybody is feeling it. But there's also some good things going on. I just got back from Scottsdale. I was at the Limitless conference that kind of Robert Kiyosaki's crew puts on. So Robert Kiyosaki was there. Ken McElroy. I think George Gammons was probably there. Tom Wheelwright. Like all of that little rich dad, poor dad. They kind of have their own little world. I represent kind of the Bigger Pockets world. By the way, if you guys didn't know this, I don't own Bigger Pockets. I really have nothing to do with it other than hosting their podcast and writing books for them. So many of you know me from the website, the books, the podcast, but don't think that that's me. I don't have that. I do have my own stuff, which you can learn about at davidgreen24.com or by following my YouTube. So this is different than Bigger Pockets YouTube. I only say that because it's confusing. Most of you see me on Bigger Pockets and you think that's David Green, but it's not, right? Like they could fire me tomorrow or the company could disappear. Hopefully not. I hope to be there for a very long time. I like being affiliated with them and working with them, and I believe in the company, but it's not all David. So if you guys want to get in my world, you can sign up for my text letter. You can go to the website. That's, why don't we put that up? Can we put up the Behind the Shine text letter?
Oh, yeah.
So Brandon Turner has a text letter called Behind the Beard. And so mine's called Behind the Shine because I have a bald head. And it's better than Brandon's. And mostly I want you guys to all get it because you can keep up with what's going on with me. But if you happen to tell Brandon that my text letter is way better than his, I wouldn't be mad about it. Just saying.
Yeah, I think that is fair. Let's see. Oh, here it is. Yep, I got it right here.
There we go.
Is the link. It's davidgreen24.com/text letter.
Oh, nice and easy. I could probably remember that. So you sign up for that. John Williams is funny, man. Like he saw my Instagram post. Maybe it's still up today, but I put up yesterday. That was like, I'm starting to put posts of words that I think need to die. All right. So I don't watch ESPN lately because the Warriors are out of the playoff. But when I was, every single pundit, 55-year-old white guys are all saying, he's him. That's him. I can't stand it. Like, can we stop saying that dumb stuff? Just because you hear someone say something that sounds like it's supposed to be cool does not mean that everybody else needs to jump on the bandwagon and start saying he's him. That's how you end up being embarrassed later in life when your kids see videos of you saying bling bling or getting jiggy with it. Or at one point, jive turkey was a thing that people were throwing around. We don't have to jump on every bandwagon. So goat is now the thing that everyone's saying, like, you're the goat, you're the goat, you're the goat. These are all the goats. You can't have a flock of goats. Goat stands for greatest of all time. There can only be one. We should rarely ever be saying that. But it's like we've got flocks of them just with tons of goats everywhere. So that I put a post about that. Like, it's time to stop saying goat all the time, unless it's going to mean goodest of all time or greatest of, I don't know, maybe greatest of this time or one of the greats. We need to come up with another acronym basically. Cause as you know, Kyle, one of my pet peeves is when people misuse language like the word literally.
Literally, I understand that. But you know what's kind of funny about you saying that? Cause I was thinking about these kind of colloquial terms and phrases that we use. Do you remember like when I was in high school, when we were in high school, my dad would try to use cool hip language?
Yeah, I
well,
do.
guess what? I'm doing the same thing.
No, you're not.
And I realized I do it for two reasons. Number one, I try to gain credibility with my kids so I can be like, hey, I can relate to you. I can be somebody you talk to. So it's like an important parenting technique. But number two, I also noticed that my kids don't like it when I do it. And so I kind of like to tease them a little bit by using the words that they're
You
hearing on
say cringe
YouTube.
and sus. Is that the word you're using?
Yeah, sussy baka is one they talk a lot about, or you're looking pretty drippy. So I'm getting into some of these terms.
Rizzed up.
Rizzed up. Yep, they were using Riz today, playing VR. So it's a completely different world than what we grew up. But I'm slowly becoming my dad as well.
That's what the internet does, is it makes everything viral. So one person talks about clothes as being as drip, and then everyone starts saying like drip, drip, drip. You know what it reminds me of? We're going to get to real estate soon, guys. Just hang tight. This is me trying to entertain you before we give you the meat and potatoes here.
Yeah.
There was a Game of Thrones episode. Did you ever watch Game of Thrones, Kyle?
Oh, yeah.
So do you remember the one where the guy was trying to impress Cersei by bringing his fleet of boats? He was like one of the captains of the Iron Kingdom or whatever. He was like the uncle of one of the characters, and he brought her like her enemies or something, like captives, and he's like expecting to get paid with sex basically. And she says, if you want a whore, buy her. If you want a queen, earn her. And I remember like every woman on my Instagram feed the next day, it was like everywhere, like post that, just every single person was posting the same thing. And I was like, that's what social media does, is one person says something that catches, and then the next thing you know, everyone's just all a bunch of sheep that are all repeating the same thing.
It's like a wildfire, man. People get the clicks, they get the likes, they get the attention, all that kind of stuff. Jason says, I just learned that SLAP stands for sounds like a plan. I haven't heard that one.
Nope, I had not heard that either. We did have a Spartan League session where I taught everyone what thought stands for. There was a lot of people that didn't know that one. Probably can't say that on YouTube.
Okay, then don't say it, because I don't know that one.
I don't think you were on that one. I think it was when you got the night off.
Yeah. That's his contribution to the trendy conversation. Nothing else. Yeah, same here. I'm not too up to date, but my kids keep me up to date, so that definitely helps. Well, okay, yeah. So it sounds like things are tough for a lot of people right now, and I like what you're saying. Like there isn't a ton of authenticity in what people are maybe putting out there. I feel like maybe some people are making things sound too good to be true in terms of their own portfolio or their own success. But then in addition to that, it seems like there's just so much doom and gloom types of videos too. And really at the end of the day, most of the people putting content out, they're just trying to get clicks, they're trying to get attention, and they're essentially trying to sell something. And so you have to be aware of that. But what are you noticing, David, just in terms of from an economical standpoint, and from like a real estate standpoint, and all the businesses that we're doing? What are you seeing in terms of the opportunities that are out there, or the lack thereof?
Well, the biggest hurdle that is obvious is the cash flow is gone. You know, when we were originally buying real estate, it was for the purpose of making more every month than what the property was worth. And we would sort of teach it like the goal is to get this cash flow. And then if it goes up in value, so much the better. And that was what we believed, because in the crash of 2010, nobody had made sure that it cash flowed. They all assumed it was going to go up. So if the problem was speculation, the medicine was teaching you how to analyze for cash flow and not assuming it goes up. Well, then the government learned how to print money, and they made insane amounts of our currency. And so everything started to go up in value. More money was floating around. And at that point, equity was almost guaranteed to build if you held it for long enough. You can't guarantee it's going to happen in the first year or two, but over 10 years, 15, 20 years, it has to go up. And when interest rates went up, it slowed down the crazy bidding wars for all the properties that we were seeing. But when you bought it, it didn't cash flow right away. So all these investors were left with this dilemma, like, do I buy property that doesn't cash flow? Because I've been told that's heresy. You should never do it. The only reason to invest in real estate is for cash flow. Or do I buy property that doesn't cash flow, but I think is going to go up in value and eventually it will cash flow, but I can't quit my job, which brought up this whole round of, well, should people be quitting their jobs? Was that ever good advice that was being given? And it's really shined a light on problems in the real estate investing community, where most people are being told what to do by someone selling a course. Okay, like they don't care if it's the right plan for you or if it's the wrong plan for you. They just care about getting your money, giving you the information they said they would, and you're off on your own to try to figure it out. I've taken the approach that people should be a little more conservative. They need to be building a financial fortress. They need to be looking to protect their wealth. And so the book Pillars, that's going to be coming out in October, is going to focus on a three-pronged approach to wealth building. It's not just buy rentals and get cash flow. It's make as much money as you can, save as much money of that as you can, and invest the difference. And the book details strategies for how to make more money, the art of making money, and then how to budget money, and the art of being good at saving. It's actually a skill. It's not a thing that just happens to happen. And then investing strategies for the difference. And I think, my opinion, the future is that if you came here like, this person said to take their course and buy a bunch of properties, the only way that you're able to do that is if you go buy a $70,000 property in the Midwest somewhere, the real estate that no one wants to own, and then people aren't able to get out from it. It ends up being a bad bet. So the struggle is that the short-term gratification, that party's over. Now we have to take a long-term strategic plan. You're not just going to like win a war in a week by flooding a country. You have to come up with a battle plan to win over a decade, and you still will. So Angela said, when's it coming out? Yeah, Jason mentioned it's in October. I believe October 17th it's slated for release, and that is when BPCon is. So if you guys are at BPCon, I'll be there, and you'll be able to buy a copy of my book from there, and I can sign it for you guys. That'll be cool. I'm still trying to talk Kyle into going. Have I succeeded yet, Kyle?
Yeah, I'm down. I think you just got to make sure you get me a ticket somehow.
Yeah, that's exactly. You just got to remind me, but that's good. I just peer pressured you in front of all these people.
Yes, you did, and you peer pressured me even before that. So that's actually a really good point. The lack of cash flow, and now going into this mindset of having a long-term strategy. And I noticed the same thing with a lot of the investors that I work with, where they come in and it's the same thing. They're looking for the instant gratification and they're looking for it now. And we sort of have to back the truck up and talk a little bit about their long-term strategy first. So for those of you that have never joined us on a Friday night, you've never been here, welcome. We hope that you enjoy this. We hope that you get something out of it. But here's how this show works. We typically have a specific topic that we're going to be talking about, maybe something around real estate, the economy, building wealth, your finances, whatever it is. Tonight, we're going to be specifically talking about some words that Elon Musk has recently said, basically warning about a big housing market crash while we're seeing prices drop dramatically, specifically in commercial real estate. So we're going to take a little bit about look at Elon Musk and what he's talking about. But the way that this show also works is if you have any questions specifically related to tonight's topic, you can come join us. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a banner here at the bottom with a phone number. It's 833-777-0309. If you send a text message to that number, you can actually come live on the show and get your question answered. Or maybe you have a certain opinion on something. You can come in and share that opinion related to tonight's topic. So regarding Elon Musk, I know that he maybe says some things that are polarizing. David, is it true that he's going to be doing some kind of fight with Mark Zuckerberg? Have you heard about this?
Yes, I have heard. I've heard from other people because I've talked about jujitsu too much, and now everyone thinks I'm like a jujitsu master. So whenever the word comes up, I haven't been in 2 weeks. I still need to go. I think I'm fighting a little bit of a cold, so you don't want to get really close to people. You can get them sick when you're doing it. It's basically sweaty hugging for like an hour. But my understanding is they've agreed to a fight, which I think by fight, they probably mean jujitsu match. I don't think they mean an MMA match. Is that what you heard too, Kyle?
Yeah, I heard it was some kind of, I don't think it's MMA. I think it is like BJJ or something like that.
Yeah, so that is my mom texted me about it, oddly enough, earlier today. And she's like, well, Elon Musk is way bigger, so I'm sure he's going to win. And I was like, I don't know, because I've never really seen Elon Musk, but just watching him walk around, and what I do know about Mark Zuckerberg won a tournament in the South Bay Jiu-Jitsu tournament as a white belt, which he's fighting other white belts. But like really the only guys that go to the tournaments are the best guys at their academies. So if you're beating the other people that are the best guys in their academies, you're really good. You take it serious. And he probably has a personal trainer that works with them every single day and the best person around. So I do think that he would win because Elon Musk looks like he could barely sharpen a pencil. Like all of his blood is in his brain for sure. So I don't think it'll actually come to fruition. I'm sure if Elon watches what Mark Zuckerberg looks like when he's training, that he would probably compare it to himself and realize he can't win. But I'm curious if it's a publicity stunt or if it's just like a fun thing that's going on right now.
Probably both. I'm curious though what the crowd thinks. Type in the chat. Do you got Musk or do you got Zuck winning this fight?
I should have let you say that before I gave my opinion.
Yeah, everybody's gonna say Zuck now because you like set it up that way. But I'm curious. Some other people might actually think it's.
Yeah, is there an argument for Elon? I'd like to hear it. And Jimmy Weiscarver, who is a colored belt in jiu-jitsu, do you agree with my analysis, or are you seeing an angle that I'm missing?
Yeah, and I'll give you my 2 cents on why it could potentially be Elon Musk. I actually read his biography, and the dude was bullied big time in school, like high school, middle school in South Africa. And so this dude has had to deal with like some bullies in his life. And so he's probably gotten stronger and become much more resilient. So I would not count him out too soon.
If he got athletic, I'd be very impressed. He just looks like he could barely walk when I'm looking at him.
Yeah, he's got like the dad bod thing going on. Zuck, I feel like he stays in shape. You see him surfing, you see him in matches in the South Bay. He's always doing something active. And then Elon Musk is like sleeping on his couch at night and like probably eating a bunch of junk food and flying all over the universe. So
I think Mark Zuckerberg has put Facebook on autopilot and he only has to worry about ideas. And then I think Musk is like running several businesses and he has to run them. It's not on autopilot at all. He probably has way less time to put towards physical fitness stuff.
This is true. Very true. So just as a reminder, text the number below 833-777-0309 if you want to come in and hang out with us and chat and talk to us a little bit. But we're not only going to be talking about Elon and jiu-jitsu. We're actually going to be talking a little bit about his warning for the real estate market. How do you feel about jumping straight into it, David, and having play the video? Okay.
Let's do it.
Give me 1 second here. I'll pull it up. All right, here we go.
All right, we have more changes unfolding in the U.S. real estate market and the U.S. housing market. Changes that have the latest property price index now showing rapid drops in CRE, with one sector surprisingly falling faster than all the others, and it's not office buildings, folks. Big surprise here. Also, we have Elon Musk now weighing in on the state of the real estate market and his prediction with what happens to the housing market, specifically the price of residential real estate, warning what's about to happen to the value of your house in the coming months. You're going to want to hear this. But before we get started, if you're not already a subscriber of this channel, consider subscribing. It helps the channel out, and I appreciate your support. So the real estate market, lots happening quickly, much quicker even than any of the forecasts had predicted, as the MSCI just released last month's numbers for their property price index. And let's just say, folks, it came as a surprise. The results were very surprising. Well, we'll go over that in a minute. But before we look at it, keep in mind what's happening right now. Okay, behind the scenes, there's a bigger story playing out in the background, folks. We've been talking about for a while all the problems tangled up into the CRE space and the exposure that small and regional banks have to it, right? Well, a few days ago, when Jerome Powell held his presser following the FOMC meeting, he actually addressed this and did so in a serious way. Because remember, at the FOMC meeting prior to this one, he was asked that same exact question, and he blew it off like it wasn't a big deal. It was a blip on the radar screen, according to him. Well, this time, he changed his tune in a big way, whether that's because he looked into the problem or he feels it's appropriate now all of a sudden to communicate the issue honestly to the public. I have no idea, but the fact remains the Federal Reserve is now concerned about CRE. And according to Jerome Powell, they are monitoring it closely as it will cause significant losses for certain banks. His words, not mine. This change in tone, isn't a small thing either, because those statements that come out of his mouth are precise and they're vetted before these types of events. So take a listen to what he said.
Commercial real estate. We, of course, we're watching that situation very carefully. There's a substantial amount of commercial real estate in the banking system. A large part of it is in smaller banks. It's well distributed. To the extent it's well distributed, then the system could take losses. We do expect that there'll be losses, but there'll be banks that have concentrations, and those banks will experience larger losses. So we're well aware of that. We're monitoring it carefully.
Now, we've gone over this plenty in the past, right? But the fact that he is saying this now, when last time he was so dismissive of the issue, is interesting. Is he starting to see it happen? Are there small banks being squeezed right now that all of us don't know about, but the Fed does? Well, the answer to the latter question is yes, 100% unequivocally yes, because we have the data. We have the numbers showing this. If you're not following me on Twitter, for example, take a look at this. The newest BTFP program numbers just released. This program, the Bank Term Lending Program, it's their new emergency lending facility that the Fed constructed following the SVB collapse back in March. Its purpose is to be used for emergencies. If a bank has unrealized losses due to their loan book and they aren't liquid enough to operate, aren't able to fulfill their operational requirements, can't pay out withdrawal requests, for example, that type of thing. And you'd expect this to be at zero if there was no bank stress whatsoever. At minimum, you'd expect that the level of borrowing to be decreasing since, all the banking turmoil is contained apparently, right? Well, it's not. It's rising. In the past 4 weeks alone, emergency loans increased $15 billion, which means there's a bank out there right now, folks, or banks who had to be bailed out this past month by the Fed in order not to collapse. Now, these banks who utilize this program are anonymous, at least to us, at least to the public. The Fed obviously knows who they are, but they don't release that information publicly to prevent exacerbating the problem, right? So the question is Jerome Powell seeing banks running up against this problem right now? Is that why he's warning about it? We don't know for sure, obviously. There's no way to know for sure, but it's possible and it's probable. In fact, it's very likely that we will see additional bank failures, probably a handful of small banks. Those are the ones most vulnerable, most at risk by this CRE implosion. For example, take a look at what they're facing right now. The closing loan maturity wall falling closer and closer to them, about to squeeze them like a pancake, folks. And like Jerome Powell said in that press conference, which to me, it appeared that he was being straightforward and honest for once about this, which is rare to see in those types of events. But he said, we will probably see this play out over some time, right? And the reason is because of this. It's just beginning, just starting. Look at the amount of debt maturing over the next 2 years, for example. That's the blue line. The beige line are the CRE loans held by banks maturing in the next 3 years. Huge increase, right? So yes, this will be playing out for some time. And why the small regionals are most vulnerable, by the way, is because they hold the vast majority of this debt. Look at the breakdown. $5.3 trillion of CRE loans expiring in the next 3 years, while 30 to 35% is held by the small regional banks. Look, folks, CRE's toast. It's done. We are seeing it all unravel. These artificially inflated prices happening right now before our eyes. Take a look at the newest CRE property price index data by MSCI. This is incredible, mostly because the office sector isn't even leading the fall here. Here's the report. So far, overall, CRE is now down 9.4% over the past year and 1.1% over the last month. Here's what they say. All the major property types posted annual declines in April, marking the first time since September 2010 that prices fell across the board. The industrial sector had held out until April, when it experienced both monthly and annual price drops. They go on. The RCA CPPI National All Property Price Index fell 1.1% relative to March and dropped 9.4% from April of 2022, dragged down by the slide in apartment sector prices. That's right, folks. Apartment sector prices are the big loser here, outpacing even the office sector. Look at this. The apartment sector, again, saw the largest monthly and annual declines among the major property types. Rising mortgage rates had led to a sharp drop in prices, with the index falling 12.1% from a year prior and 1.5% from March. So 12.1% from a year ago. And look at the breakdown of sectors here, folks. We have office, industrial, retail, commercial, apartment, etc. And look at the 3-month change in price, because remember, The CRE price descent really went into overdrive, not 12 months ago, but 6 months ago or something like that. Now look at this. Office down 2.5% in 3 months, industrial down 1.5%, retail down 2.3% in 3 months, an apartment down 5.2% in just 3 months. That's a lot. Now remember what happened after 2008. We could see it right here. It took a while for prices to fall like this. We are now seeing prices fall significantly faster than we did back in 08. Look at the movement over the past 6 months. This is twice as fast as 2008. And what was Morgan Stanley's forecast, by the way, for the apartment sector? Remember this? We looked at this once before. They published their CRE price forecast back in April. So look what they were forecasting, right? Here's what they say. Apartments, pricing decline and timing faster than expected. We expect a 15% peak to trough decline in 18 to 24 months, which compares to a 30% peak to trough decline during the great financial crisis in 33 months. Our property price forecast is based on a 5.5% debt cost, 70% loan to value, 3.5% annual NOI growth. But with the release this week, it suggests apartment prices are declining faster than anticipated and already down 13.1% from the cycle's peak in just 7 months. Our property price forecast is now under review, and we note reducing loan to value to 60% based on tightening of lending conditions would increase cap rates. Given recent events, we see risk to property prices now skewed lower. 15 to 25% peak to trough decline is what we're expecting, and timing expectations skewed shorter to just 18 months. Well, peak to trough decline, they say, between 15 to 25% in 18 months, they may turn out to be way off, folks, at least for the apartment sector, because we're already seeing it down around 18% peak to trough. But when you look at it year over year, it's only down 12.1%. All right, so that's the commercial side of things, right? Well, what the hell did Elon Musk just say about the housing market and rates? Well, take a look at this article. They're quoting him from an interview that he recently did. The article's titled, "Commercial Real Estate's Melting Down Fast. Elon Musk warns home prices will be the next to crash," it says. It writes, as a serial entrepreneur who co-founded Tesla, revolutionized the car industry, and is sending rockets into space, Elon Musk isn't known for being a real estate guru, but lately the billionaire has been sounding the alarm for the sector. Quoting Elon as saying, "Commercial real estate is melting down fast." Musk said in a recent tweet, "Home values are next." He goes on, "We really haven't seen the commercial real estate shoe drop yet. That's more like an anvil, not a shoe," Musk said. So the stuff we've seen thus far actually it's only slightly real estate portfolio degradation, but that will become a very serious thing later this year, in my view. Well, I obviously agree with him on that, but he goes on to mention that the massive impact homeowners are going to feel once unemployment starts to pick up is the real problem. So far, we haven't, seen any of that. We have virtually the lowest unemployment rate on record, if you believe the numbers by the BLS. And what I infer him saying is once we see the unemployment rate broach 4%, it's game over. There's a compounding effect to the economy when that type of thing happens. Consumer spending collapses, deflation begins, and shortly thereafter, we're smack dab in the midst of recession. And at that point, we begin to see homeowners forced to sell their homes as they no longer have the means to afford their mortgage. And that's especially true for anyone who purchased a home over the last 3 to 4 years, because when you find yourself in that situation and you're trying to survive and pay your bills, right, and you see the vast difference between the buy versus rent pricing situation, or the deficit between buy versus rent, where it's 70, 80% cheaper to transition to renting, it starts a cascading type effect. And a lot of people realize it, and the impact on home valuations is significant. Now, this effect will be much greater in certain regions of the country than others, obviously, right? Take the Northeast, for example, like Westchester County, New York, where the cost to rent is now $2,900 per month for your typical rental, but the cost to buy $6,000 per month after your mortgage, property tax, and insurance. That's a $3,100 deficit. That's a lot of money that you can save if you transition to renting. So for residents in Westchester County that find themselves out of a job in the next 6 months, this is an option that is hard to ignore. Likewise, look at Fairfax County. Look at this. It's incredible. The typical rental costs you $2,300 per month, but to buy your typical Fairfax County house right now costs $5,600 per month, which means it's 143% more expensive to buy a house than to rent. You would save $3,300 per month. I mean, just the savings alone is equivalent to some people's monthly salary. So this entire market is just upside down. Buying a house should always be equal or less than the cost to rent in a healthy valued market. We are in a bizarro world right now. All right, if you enjoyed this video, got something out of it, press the like button. If you didn't, that's all right too. Press the dislike button. Either way, I appreciate you watching.
All right. So, initial thoughts, takeaways, David, from that video. I think that's the first time you've seen that, right?
That is the first time. So I don't know who that is, but he was pretty good. At least when he was talking about commercial stuff. When he got into the residential stuff, he completely lost me. So I've got some good commentary on both of it. Man, there's so much we could talk about when it comes to this topic. First off, I'm just a little peeved with the Fed. I feel like they recklessly raised rates way too fast, and that their motive for doing that was to try to mask inflation. And the reason they wanted to mask inflation was because of all the quantitative easing that was done. And that was done so that they could make us all stay home during COVID without letting anyone feel the impact of that massively influential decision. The reality of shutting down the country for, what was it, Kyle, like 9 months or something, where it was like shelter in place. Okay. That'll create poverty when you're just not working. Nobody in the country is working, or at least only, what was the word that they would use? Like only people that had to work. There was a name, essential workers. Okay. Yeah. If they had done that for a month, the people would have been up in arms. There's no way that we're going to stay home. I have to feed my family. I'm going to work. So in order to stop people from revolting against forcing them to stay home, they printed a whole bunch of money so that we wouldn't realize how bad it was. They sent out stimulus checks. They flooded the economy with money. So everyone was like, all right, fine. I don't like it, but I'll deal with it. Well, the natural consequence of that was inflation, which you heard me talking about on the podcast for years, warning everyone this was happening. Now it's happened. They don't want to say, yeah, that's what we did to you. This is what happens because we shut the country down. So instead, they're like, let's hide inflation by jacking up interest rates to slow the price of things going up. Well, the problem with that is that commercial real estate is highly sensitive to rate increases. Now, residential real estate is too. We all understand how it works. If the rates go up too high, the homes become unaffordable. But the homes are not valued based on the interest rates. The homes are valued based on what someone else paid for them, comparable sales. Mm-hmm. So you could have a house that's sold for 600, rates go from 3 to 6 or 3 to 7. It's still worth 600 according to an appraiser. Until houses sell for 500, they're going to stay worth the 600. Commercial real estate is valued based off of the rates because it's made to make money. So when rates go up on commercial real estate, it makes it harder to buy it profitably, which means the price of it has to go down for the next buyer to be able to buy it. And with commercial real estate, it's frequently changing hands or being refinanced because you don't buy it with 30-year fixed rates. You buy commercial property on 3-year notes, 5-year notes, 7-year notes, balloon payments that are constantly being refinanced. Okay. So what happened for years was you bought it at 8% and then the rates went down to 5%. So your rents went up and the rates went down. You could then go refinance it and get a better rate and borrow more money and go buy more commercial real estate. And it created this snowball that people just kept buying and buying and buying. So it was easier because rates were going down, making your property worth more. Everything was working for you. And then the Fed prints all this money. It has to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. A lot of it went into commercial real estate. It's the easiest place to pool a bunch of money and go buy a $50 million building. So the market stayed healthy because demand was always more than supply. When they raise rates this quickly, recklessly, when you go to refinance your property that you got at 3.5%, it's not, the rate didn't go down to 1%. The rate went up to 7.75%. So what happens on like a $15 million apartment complex is your mortgage of 60 grand that maybe was made, that you were making 80 grand. So you made 20 grand a month. The mortgage goes up to 100 grand. You did nothing wrong. You managed the property the way you're supposed to manage it. And the mortgage went up so much that you can't refinance because the bank's not going to let you borrow 100 grand if it only makes 80 grand. The debt service ratio is backwards. It's at like 0.8% instead of the 1.2 where they want to see it. So you can't refi. So you either take a bunch of money and dump it into the apartment complex and try to buy it the balance down to where you can. And if you don't have that money, you sell. Well, the person buying it from you is buying it at the high rate. So they can't value it at the 15 million that you paid for it. They're going to value it at 11 million. And that's to get the mortgage that you have of $60,000. They can only pay 11 million. Now, did you do something wrong? Did you make a mistake? I mean, you didn't predict the future, right? But everybody was paying that for those homes. That's just what those properties cost. I say homes, but I mean properties. The Fed effed over that entire market by raising rates as quickly as they did to try to stop inflation. And now he goes up there and he goes, well, yeah, we're aware of the situation. What good does that do? There's a missile headed to your country. What are we going to do? We're aware there's a missile headed to us. It's very frustrating to hear him say that. What I would have loved to hear him say is, I effed up. I raised rates way too fast. We're going to bring them back down to soften the impact on commercial real estate, and then we're going to raise them slowly and predictably over 5 years. Okay, rates are at 3.5. They're going to go up to 4, then 4.25, then 4.5, then 5, and we're going to space it out over a long period of time so people buying these assets know what to expect with the thing. You can't just jack it from 3 to 8. That screws everything up. And then all the people who are going to come in to buy them at the 8%, they're going to come back down to 3 at some point, and that person's going to make an insane amount of money. And the person who bought it at 3 and had to get out at 8 lost everything. It's not really, it's not fair. I don't know how else to say it. Like, that needs to be predictable when you're providing housing to families, when you're providing office space to businesses, when you're providing warehouse space to companies. Like, people have to know what to expect in order to provide this stuff to the tenants that are going to use it. Otherwise, Amazon's going to buy all of it. They're not going to be anything. Amazon's going to be the only buyer of all the real estate. So the commercial real estate problem is significant. And you just heard Jerome Powell talking about it like he had nothing to do with it. That bothers me. It's like we took all of our crops and we used them to pay off the cartel. And okay, well, what are we going to do? Because there's no food. We're aware of the fact that there's no food. Yeah, we're aware of the fact that this is going to be bad. Some people are going to be hungrier than others. That's what he said. Some banks are going to have more exposure than others. So it's not just the person owning the properties, though. That's who I've talked about. It is also the banks that gave the loan on those properties. So if you're a bank and you say, Kyle, I'm going to let you borrow $11 million or $15 million at 3.25, and you paid your depositors 2, you're making the spread of 1.25. Well, when that person can't sell and can't refinance, you have to take that property back. And the bank let you borrow 15 million, but they can only sell it for 10 or 11 million. So they're going to lose a ton of money, which means that they have $4 million less to lend to other people to buy more properties. And then they're not going to want to make any loans on commercial properties at all. So the people that are commercial investors that wanted to make a living like that or wanted to make money like that, they get kicked out. And guess what? Blackstone can still buy all those properties because they have cash. They have $40 billion. They can go buy them. They don't care what rates are when you have cash. The people who care what rates are the people using leverage, which is usually the smaller people in the game that don't have 15 million to go drop on a property that they can buy now for 11 million, which means that the average American is now getting pushed out even more from the real estate space as the big corporations that have more cash win because we raised the rates so effing fast. And that's just like where my frustration comes from, because he's talking about it like he had nothing to do with it. It had everything to do with it because our government didn't want us to realize the consequences of printing all that money. That came from COVID, and they came before COVID. They came from the too big to fail era also, right? So what's going to happen? Don't know, but here's what my guess would be. Banks are going to start showing huge losses. They're going to say the liquidity is drying up. We can't give loans to people. They can't buy cars. They can't buy houses. They can't buy anything, okay? And then what's the government going to do? Well, we can't let the banks run out of liquidity because that's what we were worried about happening in 2010 from the crash of 2008. We're going to have to give money to the banks. We're going to have another round of quantitative easing to try to make up for this disaster that we created. And then what does that do to inflation when they print more money, Kyle?
Makes it keep going up.
So now we have to deal with that. Like it's kind of like in those cartoons where someone's in a submarine. Maybe this isn't the right example to use right now, but like where the water's coming in the sub and they plug it with their finger and then it like pops in with the other one. So then they plug that. And then the other one goes, they take this finger out to plug it, and then the water hits them in the eye. Like you're either dealing with bank failures or massive inflation or no money to lend to anybody, which means the rich people get richer, but you can't tinker with our economy as much as they have to avoid pain without there being a consequence that's going to come back. So the commercial real estate, I don't know if it's going to crash because unfortunately there's still so much money that has to find a home. People will buy these. The office sector could see that.
Mhm.
If you own a building that you lease out spaces to businesses and offices, that's what shelter in place has screwed you over, because then we all started using Zoom and now no one wants to go to work anymore. We all learned you can stay home and still get paid. They screwed over an entire industry. Now nobody wants to go back to that. If it's warehouse space, if it's shipping space, if it's multifamily housing, there's still a need for that. Like those are not the properties that are going to crash. It's probably going to happen in the office sector space, and the government's probably going to step in to bail them out from the thing they messed up, and real estate investors are going to get the black eye. They're going to say, oh, these greedy investors are the problem, instead of our government screwing around with stuff so much was the problem. And it's going to be worse. Now, he went into real estate for residential at the end, and he lost me. I just didn't follow his logic. So he made one comment that in Virginia Beach or Virginia or something, where was it? That Northeast city? Do you remember what it was?
That's where we suck. We don't know our East Coast.
Yeah, they're all different, right?
Yeah.
He mentioned rents are $2,900 a month, but it would cost $6,000 to buy a house. And so it makes more sense to rent. Okay.
Mhm.
Of course, those numbers would indicate you should rent. But what do you think is going to happen to rents when landlords realize I'm only charging you $2,900? If you wanted to buy a house, you have to pay $6,000. Okay. I
Mhm.
could charge you $4,000 a month and it's still better than buying it for $6,000. I could charge you $5,000 a month and it's still better than buying it for $6,000. Landlords will raise their rents when there's a thing like that. They just don't happen in an instant. You have to let leases expire and new leases come in. Those areas where interest rates have gone up, making housing more expensive, are all but guaranteed to have rents continue to climb rapidly.
Mhm.
A symptom of inflation, making less affordability because we printed all this money. Like he's trying to say renting's better. It's probably going to lead to you being guaranteed to get gouged by rent increases that are as much as their maximum allowed in that area. Like it's
Do you think
not
that's
good.
do you think if that happens, that states and municipalities are going to be forced to go like create more rent control measures because it's just going to get out of control?
Yeah, and then what happens when they make rent control? That pisses off all the people that like were buying properties there, so landlords stop buying them, right? So, and this is just the pattern I see in life. Every time we think we can outsmart the capitalists, you lose.
Mhm.
So let's say that they make rent control, and now you and I used to buy rental property in whatever state that was, like Virginia or Fairfax, wherever it was. Now we're like, well, screw it. I'm not going to buy there if they're going to raise rent. What happens to the supply of rental properties if we stop buying them and making them rentals?
They go up.
No, the supply of rental properties will go down if you stop buying them. Like, sorry,
Hmm.
there's not as many places for tenants to rent because landlords aren't buying them to make them rentals. The only people that buy them want to live in them.
Yep.
So that makes rents go up, but now there's rent control, so they can't go up. That creates tenants fighting for places to live. There's a shortage, exactly what Eric Brown just said, right? So is that a benefit to the people that live there, that your rent can't go up, but you can't get anywhere to rent at all? There's nothing available. That creates a need.
Mhm.
Now we have a housing need. Well, what are we doing in America every time there's a need? The government steps in to fix it. We'll make public housing. Is that ever a good idea? Anybody here ever lived in public housing and we're like, this is the best thing ever? I'd much rather live here than on a beach in Malibu.
Yeah, rarely.
It's never good, right?
Mhm.
It's going to create more crime, and then we're going to have more issues with police, and then we're going to be mad at the police, and it's like the country spirals into this negativity because they keep effing with the way that it's supposed to work with capitalism, where you just let the companies that are bad die and let the people that lost money lose money and let people build it up and come back again stronger. But like, we've ruined that. And he made another comment about residential real estate where he said it should always be cheaper to buy than rent. It's like, what? In what world are you living in that you think it should be cheaper to buy rather than rent? It's always cheaper to rent than buy in the first year. Owning the property for a significant period of time where rents go up all the time and your mortgage stays the same, it becomes cheaper there. Or if rates go down and you refinance, that $6,000 payment drops back down to $4,000 and you're not doing so bad anymore. So that guy sounded to me like he was pretty up to speed with commercial real estate, and I liked his commentary, but the residential thing lost me. And then Elon Musk apparently said residential will come next. I don't know if Elon is just way smarter than me and he sees angles I'm not seeing, or if he's talking out of his league. But if he's thinking if commercial drops, it creates a ripple effect through the economy, so then residential has to drop, maybe. But those two sectors of real estate are very different. What happens in commercial is very different than what happens in residential. The people who are buying commercial buildings are usually not individual people. They're pools of syndicators that put their money together, or they're corporations that put money together to buy them. Most of the rental properties are owned just by a person like you or me, or the people listening to us on YouTube.
So before we move on, we got a guest speaker coming in here in a few seconds, you guys. But before we move on to Priscilla, my question is, David, if the Fed keeps doing this and they're doing blame shifting, they're not taking responsibility for it, and it just continues to feel like a vicious cycle, what are some things that we, as just like you said, the traditional mom and pop investor, right? You and I are not Blackstone. We don't have all this endless supply of cash. What should we be focusing on? What options do we have? People who are here hanging out tonight watching this live stream.
Well, you literally have to get away from show me the strategy that would work in this market. Like there isn't one anymore. Now we have to move into everything needs to be customized. What are your skills as a human? What does your market look like? Where do you have the opportunity to make money? And you got to go all in on that.
Yeah.
Are you really good at this? Are you really good at, like, you're going to buy a short-term rental where it used to be like my strategy, to be honest with you guys, doesn't translate well into today's market, where I buy it, hand it to a property manager, let them do their thing, forget I have it. Now I'm like, what the hell's going on? Why are we having these problems with my rental properties? Oh, blah, blah, blah. But they're not doing as well because the market's not just carrying along. Now I have to manage the property manager. If I bought it and managed it myself, I would see what's going on and I would make it profitable because I'm paying attention to it, but I have too many to pay attention to myself, right? So the strategy of like get a lot of units and buy a bunch of them and wait is not a great strategy right now. The strategy of buy one or two, maybe three or four, use economies of scale to manage your own portfolio yourself of like short-term rentals, and keep your eye on the competition, kind of like what Jason Wolahan and Spartan League does, right? That works very well because you can physically, personally adapt versus the BlackRock that comes in and buys a bunch of them. They end up in the situation I'm having, right? That's not a thing that I can just get on a live and tell you, go do this or go do that. It has to be, is this a thing you can do? And then specifically what works with the property. So that's why we're going to be having a retreat so we can talk with the individual members to give them a strategy. And why we all need to be talking to individual investors to find out what works for them, not just what's working everywhere. It used to be buy a short-term rental, make a bunch of money. Now everybody's buying short-term rentals, right? Now the market's saturated with them. You can actually lose a lot of money too.
Yeah, and there's a skill set involved, right? And there's parts of your skill set, parts of your personality that maybe keep you from being able to grow, right? And so doing things like you mentioned Jason earlier, right? Jason he commits himself to the process. He commits himself to being the best investor that he can be, just like all of our Spartan League members and the people that come to our retreat, because it's really right now about outshining the competition and being better than everybody else. Like you said, in the past, you could just buy a bunch of properties and kind of put them on autopilot, just make sure they're doing okay. But in today's rocky times, you got to be much more aware of it, but you also got to be very skilled in how you deal with that. So that being said, speaking of the retreat, we actually have a guest speaker here. We're going to take a little pause and we're going to talk specifically about Priscilla and her past history and her experience with the retreat. And then what we're going to do is jump onto one more video along this topic. So without further ado, let's bring on Miss Priscilla Avery here to hang out.
Hi, guys. I'm doing great. How are you?
We are doing terrific. I love your background there. It looks like you got a cool like slideshow going on in the background. So
yes, I do. Yep. I'm sitting in my new studio, and that's just images of my work passing by.
Oh, that's cool. That's your work, huh?
That's mine. Yep.
I love it. So for the people who maybe don't know much about you, Priscilla, would you mind sharing a little bit about your background and what you do, and then kind of what led you into joining the retreat and deciding to come?
Yeah. Okay. I'm an interior designer. I've been doing interior design for about 20 years and I love it. I'm super passionate about it. I feel really lucky to do what I do every day. But why did I come to the retreat? Well, I've been listening to David on the Bigger Pockets podcast for a couple of years. Literally every time I'm in my car driving, that's what I'm listening to. And even though I absolutely love what I do, um, I'm at that place where, I want to make a change, not get out of what I'm doing, but, think long term, build wealth, and just, do different things in life, right? And so, because I love everything related to homes, the real estate and real estate investing really speaks to me. And so when I heard about the retreat, I kind of sat on that information for a couple of weeks before I decided to go. I had my finger on the button several times, and I was like, "Oh God, maybe tomorrow. Let me think about it tomorrow." And then I finally, committed, and I'm so glad that I did. It was life-changing for sure.
I love it. That is awesome. And we obviously had a great experience with you. So just out of curiosity, what would you say directly to somebody who is maybe in the same exact realm as you, where they're on the fence, they're sitting on their seat, they're like, I got my finger on the button, kind of like you did, Priscilla, right? And they're feeling like this urge, like they should go, but then they're not quite sure, and they're maybe afraid to commit. What would you say to somebody like that?
I would say that what you're going to get out of the retreat, the information that David gives on full spectrum, everything he gives is so incredible. What I didn't expect to happen, that did was not only is obviously sitting in front of David, because we all listen to David, so we all trust him and all of that.
Mhm.
I learned things about David that I wasn't sure about within 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, I didn't expect that about David, right? And then not only that, but the team and the people that David surrounds himself are incredible. I got when we had our little breakouts, I got some amazing little information from you, Kyle. We sat with Christian as well. So I didn't expect those things to happen. So there's more to it than you think. You're going to have more experiences than you really understand. And not only all of that, to be in a room with people who are obsessive about the same thing that you're obsessed about, all the 20 other attendees. I mean, we had the best time together, right? And we got really deep on a lot of things, and we got really vulnerable, and we learned a lot about each other. And I feel like I would do anything for anybody that was at that retreat over that time. So
I love that.
Mhm.
Lisa actually asked a question. She said, how did the retreat change your life? And maybe not change, but I'll say, how did it affect your life?
Okay. So, doing design for a long time, love design, right? But I go to the retreat to kind of shift, right? But we talked about so many different things, and I realized with enthusiasm how great what I do is, right? And I had a conversation during a break, standing there talking to David and to Rachel, that was a total game changer for me. We talked so much about business, fundamentals and all that different stuff and goal setting. And standing during a break, chatting with David and Rachel, I said, I feel like maybe there's an opportunity in the real estate realm that my interior design services could be helpful for investors, right? Because investors, a lot of times they're focused on the investment, but they don't know how to remodel. They don't know how to talk to a contractor. They don't know how to pick finished materials. They're completely blind. This is what I do. This is my skill, right? And so I was talking to them and I'm just like, what do you guys think? Like, do you think that, if I put together some type of, thing, would investors hire me? And Rachel was like, oh my God, yes, please. Cause Rachel has like 8 properties. She doesn't know how to design, doesn't want to, doesn't like, if I remember correctly, doesn't like the process, which a lot of people don't.
Mhm.
And she was like, oh my God, I would love to just hand it to you. And David said, Priscilla, what you want to do is, so, and this was we were on a break. Okay. And David said, oh, well, what would be great is if you just put together a package for investors that's like really simple and compact, right? And offer that as a service. And yeah, that, and it's how to make your short-term rental rent more frequently, rent for
Mhm.
more, stand out from the crowd. This is what I do. Like, I live and breathe this every
Yeah.
day for my clients. So what happened is I came back, you come back, when you leave the retreat, you're on fire. You're excited about your life. You're excited about your purpose. I mean, I was talking to everybody. I'm like, oh my God, I love it, right? And it just so happened that I'm sitting in my new studio. It's empty right now, but this is going to be a beautiful, beautiful design studio, interior design studio.
Wow.
Mhm.
And what's so cool is because I came back from the retreat in this mindset, right? Of expand, grow, look at what you're doing now that can help to build your financial fortress, right? And I walked by this space because upstairs from here is a place that I shop for furniture with my clients all the time. I think it's 4,000 square feet of to the trade only custom furniture. I shop here all the time. I walk by and I'm like, oh my God, the studio downstairs is available.
Hmm.
And I'm like, so wait, I can pay for 450 square feet, but have 450 square feet plus 4,000 square feet upstairs
Mhm.
for my clients, right? If I'm doing a remodel and we're picking tile and stone and blah, 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 I'm trying to tell them, save budget for furniture. I actually make a decent margin on furniture, generally speaking. So now I'll just be able to say, hey, let's go upstairs and, I'll show you around and just, keep it in your mind. It's going to build my revenue streams with different clients because I'm strategically located in this space. And I'm going to show you guys, like, I actually have like this amazing storefront.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
Yeah. It's so cool. Hey, there's Chet.
Tons of natural light coming in.
Tons of natural light right downtown Los Gatos in a very, I mean, Los Gatos is where my clients are. It's a really wonderful town, pretty, affluent clientele here. So I'm going to have all of this. And the other thing that I'm so excited about is I'm going to have meetups here for real estate investors and for other things. But one of them is to be like, hey guys, because I miss that camaraderie of being around real estate investors. So I'm going to invite people here and I'm going to say, hey, something to the effect of, bring me your one design problem. I'm going to give you a 15-minute free consultation on that.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I also have, cabinets and rugs and all these things that I get heavy discounts on that I'm going to help provide to you, and I can help you with that.
Really, all of what you're telling us, what you've done so far and what you have in the future came from one spark. And that spark was sort of David saying, hey, why don't you do this? David, since you're the one who provided that spark, and I'm sure you remember when the topic came up, from your perspective, what is it about kind of those things that you see in guests or just in people in general that come to these retreats, to where you're like, hey, maybe you should focus on this area, or maybe you should look at growing and expanding this part of your life?
that's probably, I don't know that I'm necessarily good at real estate. I'm good at that, and I've just applied it to real estate.
Mm.
So when, like I was telling people earlier, when we do a seeing green and someone says, "Hey, David, I have a problem. I don't know what I should do." It's very hard for me to answer that question like I do on the show with 1 2-minute video. But if I can go back and forth with you and I can get a feel for what you like, what you don't like, what feels light, what feels heavy, I watch you solve problems or answer other people's questions during the retreat. It's like a vision pops in my head for what the best use of Priscilla would be, similar to the best use for a property. I don't know, when I walk a property and I could just see a better use for it. I don't know why that happens, but just it does. People, I'm like that with people, right? Priscilla would have been not a great use if I'm like, you need to be in a spreadsheet on a calculator analyzing numbers for 4 hours a day. She'd be like, ugh, kill me. I don't want to do anything like that, right?
Yeah.
But what she does naturally, I got a very good feel for. What lit her up, I got a good feel for. And then the ideas pop in my head, like designing short-term rentals for higher end clients that would actually increase the amount of bookings that they got. So it's an investment, not a luxury to pay for Priscilla. Or doing what she did with this space, where, because she loves people, getting people around her, creating a community where they get to be. Priscilla's one of the people that makes you feel good. You get around Priscilla long enough, you feel really good about yourself. People want to do business with someone like that. She needs to be around humans, not cold calling people saying, I want to buy your house.
Yes.
That would be terrible for her. There are other people that would be the opposite. They're a beaver and they can chew through a tree until it falls down and they won't stop chewing until it's gone. They should not be at a meetup like the Priscilla. They'd have anxiety walking in there. They just need a system. Give me a list of numbers to call. Give me a script to say. Give me how I handle objections and I'll write offers. And it's a numbers game for them. Really, the people that are listening to this, whether you already own a portfolio and you want a better life or more money, or you're trying to get started and you're having a hard time getting started, these are events where you can get specific coaching on what would work for you. Versus what happens when you don't do this is you listen to 100 podcasts to find 2 that speak to your soul.
Right.
You're like, oh, that person, I like what they did. And then you have to, how do I go do it? You don't really have any coaching.
Yeah. And what's, what's interesting about all of this is, I am using these strategies to sort of build wealth and build verticals that I haven't been able to tap into before for design, bringing me heavier into the real estate community. But it's still, my end game is real estate. And I came back with specific information. I mean, Christian and I and Kat and David and I spoke specifically about how to leverage in an intelligent, smart way my condo to buy my rental property. That is in my mind every single day. So even though we talked about all this stuff, the end game is still real estate, but I'm building my business so that I have more, I actually do feel safer now because I can drive business to me with just my regular clients. I'm excited to get with real estate investors. And all of that is leading me towards scaling a portfolio of real estate property more quickly. But, we're in this weird market right now. And because I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, it's a tough, properties are super expensive. So I actually want to build more profit here so that I can actually invest here first instead of going out of state. So it's all related.
Yeah, and that's what I like about it, because I think a lot of people get stuck, right? They put themselves in this either or situation. It's either I do design or I need to start getting into real estate investing. And what David kind of has done and what we're realizing is, no, this is a both and situation, right? Let's do both. And then we'll add on to that and do something else and create this entire ecosystem that works together.
100%. It's, and I find what you guys are doing as such an inspiration because, there was somebody at our retreat, I think it was Matt, who is kind of similar in terms of, your different businesses feed one another, right?
Yeah.
That's so smart, right? Like never lose sight of that. And I think that that's one of the other lessons that I came back from the retreat with. How do I make what I'm doing now that I love, feed my
Yes.
other passions? So
we call that synergy. So if you've ever read my books or heard me on the podcast, constantly talking about business synergy, this is an example of how I took that and applied it to Priscilla, which is very different than how I'd apply it to me.
yes.
Right? I can't build synergy in the way you can. I look at a property and see how it would better be used. You look at a property and like you see how colors would fit together. And I don't have that. I cannot put those goggles on. I just know when it's done if it looks good or not.
Right.
But like I'm terrible with the other things. So there's so much opportunity when we talk about creativity in real estate. There are ways that everyone can use their own specific skill sets to make money in it versus following a pattern that somebody else talked about on the podcast. That's why I'm passionate about the retreats. You all listen to me on Bigger Pockets. We interview a person, you hear how they did it, but it doesn't always sit with you. Well, that's because it's the wrong strategy for you. We need to come up with a custom one that would work for those people. And then you don't feel like you're working all the time. You're not in a hurry to quit your job when you like what you're doing.
That's so true. I love what I'm doing. And what's cool is that now that I'm doing this, I feel more invigorated because I'm exhausted. I'm learning so many new things right now. It's not even funny. I've hired an assistant. She's freaking amazing. I like it's all happening, and it's like, put the right people in the right seats, and who, not how. I have found that person since the retreat who is doubling my efforts in such an efficient way. And that, that was one of the things that we talked about. Right. And so that's happening. And so, yeah, it's a lot of good stuff.
Very glad to hear that.
Yeah, Priscilla, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your experience, what you've learned, and the progress you've made thus far, and how the retreat impacted your life. And just as a reminder, everybody, if you want more information about the retreat, or if you want to go sign up, you can go to davidgreen24.com/retreats to get signed up. And one last thing,
talk to people individually if they have questions for me too. I'm happy to tell you even more about it. If you're sitting on the fence, go to the retreat. You need to go.
That's awesome. I love it. And if people want to get in touch with you, is there any simple way, or if they want to maybe learn about your interior design business?
So I'm on Instagram. You can send me a message. It's priscilla.danielle.designs. So you feel free to send me a message there. You can email me at pddesigns1@gmail. So pddesigns1@gmail. So yeah, happy to talk to anyone about the experience.
Awesome.
What was your Instagram name again, Priscilla? I'm going to tag you right now.
Okay, it's Priscilla, Priscilla .Danielle DANIELLE .designs. Yep.
Gotcha. So if you guys didn't catch that, go to my Instagram page and you can follow her there.
Yeah, and Priscilla's also a really good hiker, by the way, too.
That's right.
We all went on a morning hike, and she was like one of the people leading the crew, so that was fun too.
Oh, that was awesome! Yeah, you'll love hiking with Kyle and everyone. So
yeah, are there mountains in Florida?
Yeah, probably not.
We'll see if we can find some. But yeah, thanks again. There we go. Yeah. Thanks again for coming out and hanging out with us, Priscilla. Your space is looking awesome. Keep us updated on it.
Look awesome. It doesn't right now, but it will. But thank you guys. Good to see you.
Okay, well, have a good one. Thanks.
All right, you too. Ciao.
Bye. I can always count on Jason Wallahan to be my my help in the chats, my support in the chats, because he'll go in and he'll type in the people's name, their contact information. He's really, really good at that and always on point. So much so that when he's a little bit late, I call him out on it. So I don't know if I'm allowed to do that because he's doing it all for free. But anyways, so that was a really good thing that Priscilla shared and experienced. So again, if anybody wants information or wants to join us, we'd love to have you. And hopefully you will definitely have a similar result as Priscilla has had thus far. So back to our regularly scheduled program. David, is there anything you want to add before we get to this next video?
No, guys, if you have questions about the retreat, just type them in the comments and we're going to get into the next video on commercial real estate and looming crashes.
Beautiful. So a little bit of a background on this one. Basically, Elon again talking about his warning of meltdown. This one's going to be a little bit more focused on single family home prices and what goes into that. So we'll jump into that as we speak right now.
Hey, what's up, guys? John here. Elon Musk warns of a meltdown in the housing market. He says this is going to be fueled as well by commercial real estate. He's warning of a really, really big problem coming in the economy. And I've been discussing this as well on this channel, saying that really big issues are coming. You know, if we look at, just for example, 2020 to 2022, just that 2-year period, 40% of all mortgages in America were taken out during that period. And the average down payment for a first-time home buyer was only 6%. So if you think about it, the cost of selling one of those properties is probably 8%, 5% or 6% for realtor fees, plus you have closing costs, escrow fees, and miscellaneous little fees that are added. You're probably negative equity. The average person is probably negative equity, 2 or 3% immediately upon purchase. And the average down payment for a second home was 13%. So only about 5% equity inside of that deal. But when you have interest rates go from 3% to 7 or 7.5%, that equity goes completely out the window. And a lot of people are upside down on their properties. Now, what Elon Musk is warning in this video, and I'm going to break down for you, is really shocking. So please hit the like button. When you hit the like button, YouTube's going to share this video to educate more people about what's going on. If you want to invest in distressed real estate, you want to position yourself for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Fix your credit. We would love to help you if you have that problem. If your credit score is 600, 500, 400s, even low 700s, we would love to help fix your credit and give you a free consultation at greatcreditfast.com. That's greatcreditfast.com, or give us a call, 561-430-5900. Now, Elon Musk warns home prices are set to plunge and says commercial real estate is in meltdown. And there's a property in California that I spoke about maybe a week or so ago. It sold for over $300 million about 4 years ago. Now it's going under contract in the 60 million range, right? So they're starting to see huge markdowns on these commercial properties. And why is that? Well, commercial properties, they are in a delicate situation, especially office, because you're seeing a lot of people move out of these units, especially in cities like LA, New York, San Francisco, where it's very high tax and high cost of living, and very, very strong regulations against business owners. You're seeing people leave. And so with that type of dynamic, you're having these high vacancies, rents are starting to come down, borrowing costs are going up, insurance and property taxes going up. It's an issue, right? It's a big issue. And it's actually shocking how this whole thing kind of plays out. Elon Musk is once again ringing the alarm on the U.S. housing market. Commercial real estate is melting down fast. Home values are next. Home values are next. Now, and one thing that a lot of people also do not take into consideration when you think about the housing market is most people use their home as a piggy bank. They refinance it. They try to pull money out. They get a boat. They, try to pay off some debt on a business. They do whatever they have to do. But a lot of people refinance their homes. How do you refinance your home if you owe more on the property than it's currently worth? Well, you don't. Right? You do not refinance that home. And so you're seeing all of these people in a situation where the labor market is starting to tighten up. Cost of living is increasing, and they can no longer tap into home equity. Even if they had equity in their property, who wants to refinance at 7 or 7.5%, right? Who can afford to even qualify for that in most cases? The tech billionaire made a comment in response to a tweet by the Kraft Ventures founder, David Sachs, who said that a big chunk of commercial real estate debt was due to mature soon. Musk has previously warned that cracks could appear in property markets following turmoil in the banking sector. For example, clean energy pioneer and commercial real estate was by far the most serious and looming issue, and cautioned regional banks could experience a wave of defaults because of their huge exposure to the sector. 67% of all mortgages, commercial mortgages, are held by regional banks. 67%. And so if you look at what's happened over the last, call it 120 days, a lot of people are taking their money out of these small regional banks, going to Bank of America, Chase, going to Wells Fargo, going to the big banks. And so these small regional banks have less deposits on hand, so less money to invest, less money to pull interest off of. And on top of that, their situations, their investments are not panning out very well. You look at SVB Bank, you look at Signature, you look at a lot of these banks, they're going through really, really big issues. Now, when you step into a situation where you're going to have commercial real estate defaults, that is going to, I believe, break the camel's back with regional banks. Not all of them, but I think a lot of regional banks are in huge trouble. The debt-fueled industry has kept investors on edge in recent months, given that it faces a raft of headwinds. These include higher interest rates, tighter credit conditions, and work-from-home trends. Now, I've discussed this, tighter credit conditions. I think some people think that I'm joking. If you look at 2008, you look at 2009, look at 2010. I'm not saying we're walking into that, but I wouldn't be shocked by any means. It could actually be worse than that, but we will see. Tighter credit conditions. During that period, only people that were really strong on paper got the funding, got the financing, were able to go out there and invest in real estate. And those people made the money. Like those people absolutely crushed it. Look at Sam Zell. Look at a lot of these big investors. Even Blackstone, they founded Invitation Homes during that meltdown because they had access to money and they knew the value, right? And I think the same thing's going to happen again. I think we're going to see huge blocks of commercial real estate trade hands. I think we're going to see huge blocks of residential real estate trade hands. So putting yourself in a position to get funding is, I think, one of the smartest things people can do. JP Morgan estimates that about $450 billion in commercial real estate debt is set to expire this year, and it could default. So $450 billion could default. Meanwhile, Morgan Stanley wealth managers and the commercial property prices could tumble 40% from their peak in light of sector troubles. Now, what does that mean? 40% from their peak. Let's say, for example, you bought a $10 million property. You put $3 million down. So you have a loan of $7 million. But the issue is that $7 million loan you locked in at 3% interest rate. Now it's 6% or 7% interest rate. And you need to refinance this because you're set to refi in December. And so what's going to happen? They're going to look at the cash flow of the building, which the last couple of years probably was lower than you anticipated. Interest rates are increasing, meaning the cost to borrow money is going to go up. So you have less money coming in and a higher cost to borrow money, and insurance and property taxes are going up. They're going to ask you to bring money to the table. They're not going to say the building's worth 10. They might say the building's worth 6. So you need to bring $2 million to the table to be able to get the funding, or $2.5 million. So you would need, in this example, you would need to bring $2.5 million to the table to get a loan on a building that's worth 6, which you've already basically lost $3 million or $4 million on paper, right? You're going to have this situation across the board. People are just going to give back the keys in most situations, I would imagine. The U.S. housing market is also dealing with similar problems, which likely explains Musk's view that prices were set to topple. Morgan Stanley reported that home sales have bottomed at higher borrowing costs, crippled demand, with experts warning of a 15 to 20% plunge in prices. Now, I believe that it's going to be much, much worse than that, because just the last, call it 24 months, most markets increased by 15 to 20%. So if you're talking about just those gains, you're like, oh yeah, we're just going to give back those gains. That would be one thing. But if you look at where the everyday consumer is, record high credit card debt, a job market that's in big trouble, record high inflation, you're starting to see people looking at their economy, looking at their stock portfolio, looking out at the world saying, you know what, I need to put myself in a better position. I need to pull back on reckless spending and put myself into a position to be able to weather a storm. 15, 20%, I don't think so. I think that consumers are going to have less money, especially as interest rates rise, to be able to go out there and actually qualify to buy these properties. And here's what I mean. So let's say, for example, today's mortgage rates. You're looking at, let's say the average credit score in America is a 698, by the way. But let's say you're above average, right? You're 700 to 719. You're looking at a 7.72% mortgage rate. So let's just call it 7%. We'll go down. Right, and the average home in America is $429,000. But if you're in any city, or if you're in any market, you're way above that. So we'll just say the average is $500,000. The monthly payment is $3,912 per month. Let's say that you're in an area where it's below the monthly average, or the average. You're $400,000. You're $3,151. This does not include increased utility bills and increased cost of living. And so for you to be able to qualify for that property of a below national average home, you would need to make $10,000 a month really to qualify for that. $10,000 per month to qualify. Who can do that? Who can really afford that? But if it were, let's say, a mortgage rate of 3%, like what we were used to before, $2,000, that's manageable, right? A lot of people can afford that, especially when you consider, the average rent in America is probably around $1,800 to $2,000. So you have a different relationship with real estate at 3% versus 7. So they go on to say, moreover, lenders are pulling back in preparation for further bank runs after a wave of deposit withdrawals toppled Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank in March. These forces are putting downward pressure on asset prices, fanning fears that prices of houses in commercial real estate space could suffer. I fully agree. I've talked very vocally on this channel, that I said the best time to sell real estate was between 2020 and 2021. That was when everyone was talking about it was the best time to invest in real estate. I follow a model from Carl Icahn. He said, my job as an investor is to sell when everybody wants to buy and to buy when everyone wants to sell. We were in a period where it was an incredible time to sell, and I think we're going to be stepping into a period where it's going to be an incredible time to buy. Miami and Miami Beach commercial real estate sales volume dropped 80%. 80%. A lot of people say, it's just, certain areas. It's just California. It's just New York. It's just... You're seeing it in Miami as well. You're going to see there's going to be some areas that are going to get hit harder than others, no doubt. But I mean, this isn't a small number, 80%, not by any stretch of the imagination. Foreclosure filings jump 120% in Syracuse. Foreclosures are up, but is the housing market headed for a crash with car repossessions and home foreclosures rising? Some Americans are living on a financial cliff. Houston apartment owner loses 3,200 units to foreclosure as multifamily feels the heat. Single family home inventory rises 119% over the last year. Yeah, what do you think about this? What do you think? Do you think that we're going to step into a situation where we're going to see all these property owners that have very limited equity in their homes? They're back against the wall saying, you know what, I either walk away from this property or I rent it out. I personally think that's what we're walking into. I think we're going to see a really, really big change. And I think that if you position yourself well over the next 12, 24, 36 months, you will make an absolute fortune and your future will be taken care of. Your family will be taken care of. But the next couple years, next few years are going to be so important. Drop your comments below, hit the like button.
All right, Kyle,
All right.
as someone who doesn't have experience with commercial real estate, what was your opinion on him there?
I think he has some good points and things to be concerned about, and things that nobody's really been talking about. It's the fact that a lot of these commercial buildings are being funded by regional banks, right? And because of these regional banks potentially being upside down on these properties, that can have a huge issue for like a lot of people, right? Not just the commercial real estate investors and the banks themselves. It trickles down to everybody. So that's one thing that I would initially be concerned about. And I think it's something we don't talk about. What we always talk about is, okay, the prices are going to drop, everything's going to crash, and you can look at it either as an opportunity, but also as a time where you need to start kind of tightening down and being aware of things like your credit and your debt and that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting, an interesting point, and one worth considering for sure.
I don't know enough about the overall financial system to predict exactly what would happen, which, like I promise you guys, I don't talk about stuff I don't understand. If I don't know it, I'll tell you. I can see that this will likely, at best and probably at least, have a really big impact on banking. So I can see banks struggling. Like he said, the Fed's already had to kind of bail some of them out. We saw what happened with some of the other banks that bought bonds. Again, like this is because the Fed raised rates so fast. I don't mean to beat this drum, but I'm sure not everybody's heard it. When I heard the Silicon Valley Bank was going down, my assumption was, oh, they made bad loans to tech companies. They made loans to tech companies that couldn't pay them back because they never made it to IPO, or Google out-competed them. And so they were making risky loans to the tech sector. But no, they failed because they bought too many bonds. That we all make fun of them when that happens, but I don't think anyone here would have ever thought if you bought bonds that could get you in trouble. They're the safest thing you could ever buy. It's like eating too much broccoli. Who would have thought that could happen? But because the Fed raised rates so quickly, buying bonds became risky, right? You buy bonds at 4% because you borrowed money at 2%, and then the Fed raises rates to 7%. Now those bonds you bought aren't worth very much, and so you can't make a profit on those or sell them to pay back your investors when there's a bank run. I don't blame banks for going down when that kind of stuff is happening. It's like there's certain things you can't blame somebody for when it goes wrong. There's other things that you can. No one's ever going to be perfect. Well, if banks are getting hammered because they bought bonds, now they're getting hammered because loans that they made 4 years ago or 5 years ago are coming due, and real estate has exploded in value, except for the fact that we raised the rates in the last year. And so commercial real estate didn't get to go up in value because the value of the asset is so closely tied to the rate. It's not fair to the bank. It's not fair to the buyer. It's not fair to the investor. It's not going to be fair to the tenants who have to like be managed by a bank when the bank forecloses and takes the thing back. You know, like if you live in an apartment and it gets foreclosed on and you need to get maintenance done and your owner is a bank who knows nothing about that, you're going to have a bad experience. It's not fair. So I don't know how bad the exposure is going to be. And I also can't predict if banks go down, how that affects everything. I don't know anyone in my world that's like that level of experience that can predict it. But I'd be concerned about that. If anyone hears any content of someone saying, if banks collapse, this is what to expect, that would be a very good conversation to have for how we can position ourselves to take advantage of that fact, if there's even anything that could be taken advantage of.
Yeah, this is actually a good point. I like this guy, the way he was able to articulate his thoughts too, and sort of the way he laid it out. But Frederick here in the comments says very bold prediction over the next few years. I think we see that everywhere, though. I feel like everyone's making a bold prediction over.
Well, if you don't make a bold prediction, who clicks on your video?
Yeah.
You ever notice that all you ever hear is a bold prediction? And then how many bold things have happened in the last 4 years? Like I keep posting on Instagram and I keep having people say, you're going to have a crash. You're going to have a crash. And I'm like, God, I've been hearing this for 10 years and no one ever calls those people to task, right? No one ever is like, yeah, my short-term rental has gone down by 10% or 15%. Okay. Yeah, that sucks. But businesses should do that, right? Prices have stopped increasing as much as they were, or they've dipped a little bit. That's the reality. But no one talks about that. They talk about a crash or a huge run, right? They put a bunch of fire in the background of their thumbnail, or they put a bunch of dollar signs. Like you're always going to be drawn by somebody who makes bold predictions, but then no one really ever holds them accountable.
Speaking of bold prediction, one I'm going to make is that the Fort Lauderdale retreat is going to be amazing. That's my segue into showing these pictures. I figured out how
your
to
brain trying to work that out. Somebody in the comments had said, what's the venue look like? So Kyle was working on that.
Yeah. So let me pull this up for everybody that wants to take a peek. So
and while you're doing that, I did notice that the guy said the average person has negative equity. I don't know what world he's living in.
Yeah.
I haven't met a person yet that has negative equity.
It's the opposite.
Yeah.
All right, David, do you want to show us your describing skills here as you describe this venue, and then I can kind of go from picture to picture to picture?
That's a good point there. I could go into realtor talk. You want me to do that?
Yeah.
This opulent, rare, and exquisite location.
You have to do it in a Scottish accent, though.
Have you noticed how everyone uses boasts in their descriptions for real estate?
Yes.
That's one of the things that will make me mock somebody. Homes are very arrogant. They're just boasting about themselves all over Zillow, aren't they?
Yes, there's a lot of ego and pride.
As you can see, we've got a place on the water. It's on a canal. Beautiful property. It's got a pool next to the water, so you could be in the pool wet, looking at wetness. It's amazing. 2 stories. Clearly, you may be staying in the main house. You may be outside in one of the chairs, and it's got a beautiful interior as well. Complete gaming, pool table, sitting area. You've got the little in-out space as you see Kyle's cursor moving about. And plenty of places to be forming relationships, whether you're sitting in the hot tub enjoying yourself, or perhaps at a backyard patio drinking a cocktail, taking snacks. As Kyle's mentioned, we have more food than you can possibly imagine. You'll probably leave fat, but that's okay because your pocketbook will be fat as well. How's that?
Very true. I love it. That's actually really well done. Let us know in the comments, what do you think of David's accent, and if that's something you think is pretty accurate, and if you approve of it or not. Yeah, I mean, this space looks really, really cool. I do like the fact that it's water on top of water, basically, right? So there's a lot of water, but I guess if you're in Fort Lauderdale, you got to be around it. So there's humidity out there, so people are going to want to dip in the pool and relax or go out. The one question I had, David, do you know about this? One of these pictures shows jet skis. Are those things that are always there, and do they belong
Those
to
are
us?
an option that the Airbnb folks allowed for us to, if we want, you can pay extra to get the jet skis. So
Oh, okay. So it's like an upgrade type of deal.
we may do that though. If enough people go and that's something they want to do, we could figure that out.
Let me show this to y'all what that looks like. And can you explain to what that cityscape is in the background? Is that all Fort Lauderdale?
I think that's probably Miami,
That's
actually.
Miami.
Fort
Okay.
Lauderdale's pretty close to Miami.
Okay. See, you guys, these East Coasters, or West Coasters, we
Yeah.
don't know what we're looking at or what we're talking about. But these are the jet skis in question right here.
Yeah, this area has really cool properties. I've been out there a couple times to look at houses to buy. It was before rates went down, so they were a lot more expensive and hard to get. But a lot of the houses out there are on canals. They're on the water just like
Mhm.
this. So you have a full backyard, and then there's water, so you can fish off your dock, or you can jump in a boat, and you could actually take it right out to the ocean. And then you can just come right back from the ocean, and you don't have to put your boat on a truck and take it home. You just pull it right up to your house, put it on a hydraulic dock, and it just like climbs up. So it's kind of known for people that like the water over there, but it's always nice when you're sitting in a house and look out the window and you're just looking at
Mhm.
water. It's
Yeah.
never bad.
I love it when you can spot the drone operator.
Oh, you can? Where do you?
Yeah,
Oh,
in that
yeah.
picture. Yeah.
Kyle's eagle eye there.
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't
He's
notice
trying to
that
he's trying to blend in all white there,
by
but
the pillar.
we caught him. Yeah. Dan asked the question, are we all in the same building? Do you mind giving the 2 cents on what that looks like?
It depends when you sign up. So no, not everyone will be in the same building unless only 6 people go. So depending how many people are there, the main house, what is it? Is that the gold package or platinum or something? How are we?
Yeah, I believe it's mostly silver and above is what it is. Or no, gold and above, sorry.
Yeah, so there's
Yeah.
options that you can be in the main house. That's where I'll be staying, and likely Kyle and Christian, depending how that works out. When we do these in Scottsdale, which is where we've done it before, there's a casita that we all stay in on the property, but the guests stay in the main house. This one's a little bit different because everyone said they wanted us to do one on the East Coast. So that's why we did it in Fort Lauderdale instead of at my Scottsdale property. But the main house fills up first, and then depending how many other people go, we get additional Airbnbs that people will stay in, and then in the mornings you'll just drive over and we'll do our event. You'll stay there all day long, and we have food brought to the house. Occasionally we'll have breaks throughout the middle of the day for socializing or hanging out, and sometimes I'll try to go for a run, or you're going to be still doing business, so you're going to need to be on the phone and on your computer making calls. It's not a thing where you're expected to be sitting there completely paying attention to me for 10 hours or anything. Like we expect you guys to get up and go outside and stretch your legs or make a call or text message when you're in the event. And then at night you'll go back to the house, go to sleep, hang out with the people at that property, and then come back again the next day.
Yeah. And nobody's ever complained about, oh, I didn't feel like I was at the main event enough, because you're at the main event the entire time. So even if you're not staying in this actual building, you're going to be basically there 95% of the time. You're just going to go back to the other place to sleep. We put snacks and drinks in the other place too. So if you need a little midnight snack or something in the morning when you wake up, or coffee or whatever, you can have it if you're an early riser. But then we usually start the day pretty early and get it going at the main event house. So it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Or FaceTime with your kids before bed. That's exactly right. Someone's always going to do that.
Well, Jason admitted last night on the Spartan League that one of his primary motivations to go to this retreat is so that he can get a little time away from his kids.
That's smart, because his brain isn't going to be able to tap into its creative spaces or the angles that he needs to see unless he gets away, which is good for. In fact, I go on these events, and when I'm there, business ideas always hit me that I do not see when I'm in my office, buried in meetings, buried in the next book I got to write, buried in the next time I got to perform or content I have to put together. You get away and stuff starts popping in my head. Oh, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. One of my commitments for 2023 was to make a bigger effort to communicate with my database. right? Which is why we're doing this stuff, because we want you guys to feel like you're connected to us, not just I watch David on Bigger Pockets. No, you want to be in my world, and I want you to be in my world. I want us to know each other better. I got that idea at the last retreat, where all these people were like, some of them were crying, saying like how life-changing it was. And I'm like, what am I doing that I'm not connecting with the people better? Just hoping that they happen to see me on the Bigger Pockets podcast. So I'm sure more people will have breakthroughs like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's always a breakthrough. And same thing. I always seem to have some sort of paradigm shift, whether it be big or small. It's always an opportunity for me to take a second to literally retreat from the world and think twice about, okay, where is my life? Where is it headed? And this becomes a great opportunity to do so. And then just obviously the people that we meet are pretty dang awesome.
The first time that I ever spoke in another accent was at a retreat.
Really?
Yeah. Jessica was saying, I'm going to go on one of these to get away from the babies. And I was like, yeah, you're guaranteed to have fun, because especially like near the end of the night when we're hanging out, listening to music, shooting pool, watching movies, talking about whatever we thought about in the day, sharing our stories, right? Like that's when that side of me is more likely to come out. And we had Mickey at one of them, and he's from, do you remember what country he's from? Is it Lithuania?
It's one of those,
It's one of those Eastern European ones that we mix up. And he has like what sounds like a Russian accent. So we started talking in Russian accents as well, which turned into Scottish accents and then Southern accents and everything else. So it is, we haven't even mentioned that. You're guaranteed to have fun. It's just a lot of fun that's going to be had.
Yeah. Not to mention, it's just, if I can recruit enough people to watch Interstellar, there will probably be a showing of Interstellar at least once.
That's what you and Rob have in common. You guys both love that movie.
Yeah, and there was actually people on the last retreat that I found like that was their favorite movie too. So I'm telling you, like there's some people. Oh, there's Mickey right there, Macedonia. Yeah, that's. If I don't take it personal, Mickey. If we don't know like our own states on the East Coast here in the U.S., we're not going to know other countries. So we're not geography majors for sure.
Please, Mickey, I ask for forgiveness. This is not something I am classically trained in understanding. I appreciate meeting you and your brilliant mind, but I don't know where Macedonia is, and I don't know what you do in Macedonia. But it was wonderful seeing you in Scottsdale. I hope to see you again.
I like it.
You're speechless there. All right, guys. That's all we got for you. It's still, the night is young unless you're on the East Coast, in which case you're probably getting pretty tired. What did you think of today's show? Let us know in the comments on YouTube if you enjoyed it, if you like this topic, or what topics you'd like to see more of. And make sure that you like the video and share this with other people, because it's free and we do this for free. And so all we ask is that you just support us so that we don't ever turn into something where if you want to hear me talk, you have to pay $10,000 an hour. Just listen to my thoughts.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, everybody. Again, go check out davidgreen24.com/retreats if you're interested in coming. Otherwise, we will see you here next Friday at the same time, same bat channel. And Mickey says he loves when David tries that Russian accent.
Spasiba, comrade.
All right. See you guys.